السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We return back, alhamdulillah, after praying, or you could be possibly also praying على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم by saying الصلاة والسلام, or making tasbih, or just exercising or stretching your legs. Inshallah, everyone is refreshed and ready to continue what happened to the history of the Qur'an during the khilafah of Othman radiyallahu anhu. So we mentioned last that Hudayfa was terrified of the fighting and the bickering that was occurring and the no solution. There wasn't a solution. They were fighting and there was no way to resolve these issues because of the lack of a written text that was easily available, that was also authentic and agreed upon. And relying only on scattered memories, however strong, is not something that's acceptable in the Qur'an al-Kareem, void of it also being authenticated by text, especially when they're different versions, and the versions were mixed in with it being ahruf, which were authentic, versus ayat that might have been abrogated, versus just plain old mistakes that humans could commit. Okay, so Hudayfa radiallahu anhu hurries to Uthman as quick as possible. It takes a few months going from Azerbaijan to back to Al-Madinah, and he tells him about the problem. So the solution that they come up with is, well, you should be able to guess what the solution is because it's written in front of you. Right? They decide to scribe multiple copies of the Quran and send these copies to these major regions. So that solves the issue of they don't have a written text reference. Now they will have one. But that's not enough because we're talking about the Qur'an al-Kareem. It's a Qur'an, that means it's recited, and it's a kitab, that means it's written. So having a written copy, scribed copy, an identical copy from that was written or collected at the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, having many copies sent to different regions solves only a part of the problem, because the same word, skeletal letters, if you can imagine with me, can be read in many different ways unless you have someone who can recite the Quran correctly also. So that's what he also did. So with each copy, he would send at least one professional reciter who had memorized the Quran in its entirety, some of them directly from the Prophet ﷺ and some of them from the companions. So that's like an introduction to the steps now that were taken. If you notice now, this bubble here is golden, whereas in the pages before, they've always been white. Last year, I decided to color some of the bubbles in gold when it was quite different or slightly different from what I have in the book that I collected. It was 2013/2014 when I put together the Tajweed diagrams book. But now this slideshow has so many more, and I didn't want to go back and change the gold to white. The reason for the gold is to distinguish it from the timeline in the book and to let you know that it's different. But now with this slide, I've added so many more slides to last year's, so it'll be mostly gold if I do that. So just bear with me. I think I might change everything to gold. I like it. It goes well with the background. It's supposed to be gold. I don't know if it shows up on your screen as golden or cream or yellow, but on my laptop, it shows as kind of creamy goldish. Okay. It does, okay, alhamdulillah. My intention is to be a goldish cream. So imagine it that way if it doesn't show correctly on your screen. Each copy of the Quran would be accompanied by several of the best reciters. I use the word several because that's what's in the texts, but usually when they say names, they only name one. So it's possible that when the scholars of Quranic history wrote it down, they knew that many were sent, but they iktafu, basically, it was enough for them to mention the top one, the one that was like the master reciter, and probably helpers were sent with him. So that's why the wording is, I'm just sticking with what's in the scholarly texts and the history, the Quranic history books, where they say several were sent, several reciters were sent with each copy. Wallahu a'lam. Although we only have, to my knowledge, like documentation of one name per copy. So I don't know, Allahu a'lam. So the best reciters, yes, Uthman radiallahu anhu chose the ulama, chose the huffaz, the scholars who knew exactly how to recite and the meanings of these ayat. Because guess what? When you send a reciter back then, we mentioned this before, a reciter means that they are hafiz. Hafiz means that they have fully absorbed each ayah, meaning and application and the history of it and anything to do with that ayah, and know how to apply it and can give advice and can give fiqhi ahkam. So basically he's sending a leader to each community. A leader, translated in Arabic, is imam. And that's why a lot of the scholars refer to the Mushaf Uthmani as al-Mushaf al-Imam, the Mushaf that is to be followed. And that's where that terminology comes. But he also sent the actual human being, Imam, with the written Imam to each region, each major region. Okay, so notice the wording in this bubble here you have in front of me, and in front of us, where he would send the best reciter who had memorized and read the Quran in the ahruf in which the wording matched the written copy. Okay, let's pause here for a little bit. I haven't mentioned to you yet how many copies were made. So let's just go with that there were several copies made. Inshallah, I'll give you the number in a few slides. These copies contained ahruf. So think of the 7 different variations or differences mentioned by Ibn Jazari. And remember that some variations require an added letter or subtracted letter, an added word or subtracted word, a switched letter, like sad and sin, or kaf and ha, or a ta or a ha, like rahmah and rahmat. And because of these slight variations in writing, Uthman radiallahu anhu, when he sent a reciter, he sent the reciter that would recite it in the recitation or ahruf that matched the copy. So he would not send someone who would recite tajri tahta al-anhar with a copy that was written tajri min tahti al-anhar. That would be a disservice to the community, where the reciter is reciting without a min and the mushaf has a min. That's a problem. No, he would send a reciter who would recite it so that the recitation, the verbal utterance of the Quran, matched the skeletal letters in the mushaf. Okay, and now that skeletal letters, we know that can contain in and of itself variations like fatatabatu and fatabayanu, right? And what other variations? When there's a difference in tashkil, bakhal and bukhul, that's definitely will be contained because it has to do with tashkil, and tashkil was not existence. Sari'u and wasari'u is not contained. It has to be one or the other. Okay, so each scholar or imam reciter sent with the mushaf imam or Uthmani, they would recite it so that whatever they're reciting matched the skeletal wording written. Okay, so there is no contradiction between what they were reading and what was written. So that's very important to grasp, because if they hadn't done that, they're not solving the problem. Okay, so here this is the solution to the issue of bickering and disagreeing about how to recite and what is Quran versus not. Okay, back to the white. So this is sticking to the wording of my book. The committee or a committee was formed to carry out this massive project. It's massive because what they're going to do, what Zayd radiallahu anhu did, but many times over, because they're making now multiple copies of this mushaf, not just one. So it's a massive project. Leading this committee is none other than Zayd bin Thabit, of course he has to be the top choice. He's the one whose handwriting was on the Mushaf al-Siddiqi. He's the one who did this before. So we learn lessons that if you want to do a massive project, don't reinvent the wheel, you know, ask help from whoever's done it there before. And there's Zayd bin Thabit. In addition, because it's such a massive project, him alone, it would take way too long. So in addition to Zayd, there were a committee of 3 other Sahaba. The 3 others were from Quraysh for a reason, that most of the Qur'an was actually revealed and written down using the spelling system of Quraysh. And that's correct. Okay, now I want to remind you of what spelling system, what's Quraysh. We talked about this in the first day. So I just want to remind you if you've forgotten, or if I was too brief or too quick, or you're too surprised with the content to absorb. Okay.